Namaskar students. Hope you are hale and hearty, taking care of your health and your studies. When I say forest, what comes to our mind? Trees all around us. You know the poem of Robert Frost, two roads diverged in a wood. That's the image which comes to our minds. Forests also face a lot of troubles these days. You must have heard in the news about this fire, sometimes in Australia, sometimes in America, even in India. In Uttaranchal, it was a serious issue a couple of years ago. We need to conserve forests for a better environment, and that's a global concern. Exploitation of forests is not a new phenomenon. It's an age-old phenomenon. The development came at a price, and that price was erosion of these forests. So how this all started? We shall be doing that in today's session. It's grade 9, chapter number 4 of your history books. The name of your book is India and the Contemporary World, Part 1. The name of the chapter is Forest Society and Colonization. So, let's begin. Why deforestation? As the population increased over the centuries and the demand for food went up, farmers extended the boundaries of cultivation by clearing forests. The British encouraged the production of commercial crops like jute, sugar, wheat, and cotton for their industries as raw material. The British thought that forests were unproductive land as they yielded no revenue nor agricultural produce. Cultivation was viewed as a sign of progress. Oak forests in England were disappearing. There was no timber supply for the shipbuilding industry. Forest resources of India were used to make ships for the Royal Navy. The spread of railways required two things: land to be cleared to lay railway tracks, wood as fuel for locomotives and for railway line sleepers. Large areas of natural forests were cleared for tea, coffee, and rubber plantations. Thus, the land was given to the planters at cheap rates. So, what were the changes in the forest societies under colonialism? First and foremost were shifting cultivators. Forest management had a great impact on shifting cultivators. In shifting cultivation, parts of the forest are cut and burned in rotation. European foresters regarded this practice as harmful for the forests. They felt that such land could not be used for growing trees for railway timber and was dangerous while being burnt, as it could start a forest fire. This type of cultivation also made difficult for the government to calculate taxes. Nomadic and pastoralist communities. Nomadic and pastoralist communities were also affected by changes in forest management. Their traditional, customary grazing rights were taken away and their entry into the forests were restricted. Passes were issued to them which had details of their entry and exit into and out of the forests. The days and hours they could spend in the forest were also restricted. This was in contrast to the earlier system that allowed them unrestricted entry into the forests. Pastoralists had to lessen the number of cattle in their herds, which reduced their income. Now they were deprived of this additional income. Some pastoralists even had to change their lifestyle, leave pastoralism and work in mines, plantations, factories. Some were branded as the criminal tribes. Firms trading in timber forest products. Firms trading in timber forest products were given the sole trading rights to trade in the forest products of particular areas. They made huge profits and they became very rich. The entire timber and forest trade passed on to them. They became powerful and began to cut down trees indiscriminately. Plantation owners. The plantation owners found that more and more forest land could be cleared for plantations. The British had made it very clear that their system of forestry would be scientific forestry. Plantation owners began to reap profits as the British government gave large areas of forest land to European planters. Kings, British officials engaged in shikar. The king's British officials engaged in hunting found that now the villagers were prohibited from entering the forests. They had the forest and wild animals to themselves. So hunting animals became a big sport for them. Thus, hunting increased to such an extent that various species became almost extinct. So let's see some important dates. In 1600, approximately 1/6 of India's landmass was under cultivation. The population of Java was 3.4 million. 1700 to 1995, 9.3 of world's total area was cleared for industrial uses, cultivation, pastures and fuel woods. 1770, Kalanga uprising, which was suppressed. In 1850, the spread of Indian Railways came to the forefront. In 1864, the Indian Forest Service was set up. In 1865, the Indian Forest Act was formulated. In 1878, the Indian Forest Act was amended and divided forest into reserved, protected and village forests. 1890, Sorontiko Samin started a movement against the state ownership of forests. 1899 to 1908, there were terrible famines. In 1910, rebellion in the kingdom of Bastar took place. 1880 to 1920, India's cultivated land rose by 6.7 million hectares and there were terrible famines. 1946, the length of railway tracks laid by now was 7,65,000 kilometers. In 1980, introduction of scientific forestry and restriction imposed on the forest communities resulted in many conflicts. First, let's look at location of Bastar and belief of people of Bastar. Bastar is located in the southernmost part of Chhattisgarh and borders Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and Maharashtra. The central part of Bastar is on a plateau. A number of different communities live in Bastar such as Maria and Muryagons, Dhurwas, Bhatras and Halbas. They speak different languages but share common customs and beliefs. The people of Bastar believed that each village was given its land by the earth, and in return they had to look after the earth by making some offerings at each agricultural festival. They show respect to the spirits of the river, the forest and the mountain. Since each village knows where its boundaries lie, the local people look after all the natural resources within that boundary. If people from a village want to take some wood from forest of another village, they pay a small fee called in exchange. Some villages also protect their forest by engaging watchmen, and each household contributes some grain to pay them. Every year there is one big hunt where the headmen of villages meet to discuss issues of concern including forests. So, causes for Bastar Rebellion. When the colonial government proposed to reserve two-thirds of the forest in 1905 and stopped shifting cultivation, hunting and collection of forest produce, the people of Bastar were very worried. Some villages were allowed to stay on in the reserved forest on the condition that they worked free for the forest department in cutting and transporting trees and protecting the forest from fire. So these came to be known as forest villages. People of other villages were displaced without any notice or compensation. Villagers had been suffering from increased land rents and frequent demands for free labor and goods by colonial officials. And finally, the terrible famines came in 1899 and 1900 and again in 1907 and 1908. So, the rebellion became inevitable. So, results of the Bastar rebellion were that in a majority victory for the rebels, work on the reservation was temporarily suspended. The area to be reserved was reduced to roughly half of the planned before 1910. Now let's move from Bastar to Java. So, what were the causes for forest rebellion in Java? The Dutch wanted timber from Java to build their ships. They banned the practice of shifting cultivation. The Dutch enacted forest laws in Java restricting villagers' access to the forest. Now wood could only be cut for specified purposes like making riverboats or constructing houses, and only from specific forest under close supervision. Villagers were punished for grazing their cattle in young strands, transporting wood without a permit, or traveling on forest roads with horse carts or cattle. As in India, the need to manage forest for shipbuilding and railways led to the introduction of a forest service by the Dutch in Java. The Dutch first imposed rents on land being cultivated in the forest and then exempted some villages from these rents if they worked collectively to provide free labor and buffaloes for cutting and transporting timber. So, forest rebellion in Java or Samanist movement in Java, what was it? In the late 19th century, the colonial Dutch had taken over much of Indonesia. The Dutch sought after the natural resources which were abundant in the land. These resources included spice lands and many forests. One forest in particular was the teak forest, which lay in near the village Bojonegoro in north-central Java. This forest was communal land which provided resource to the native people who otherwise had nothing. This area contained the highest percentage of teak forest land in Java. Dutch officials declared it as Dutch colonial property and denied access to the forest for the local people. In 1890s, after much struggle between the Dutch and the local people, Surontiko Samin, a peasant farmer in the area, started preaching pacifist resistance towards the Dutch colonial authorities. Rather than revolting against the Dutch, Samin encouraged peaceful resistance in the form of not paying taxes and continuing to take teak out of the forest for their own use. By 1907, 3,000 families were following his idea. Some of the Sam insists protested by laying down on their land when the Dutch came to survey it, while others refused to pay taxes or fines or perform labor. This was an era of growing administrative supervision and centralization of the government on all political and social levels, even the remotest villages. Tax assessors, agricultural agents had a host of other public servants descended upon the village society, which was thus drawn almost perforce within a Western orbit. The word Sameen comes from the Javanese word Sami, which means the same. So during World Wars, the face of deforestation, let's try to analyze this aspect. The First World War and the Second World War had a major impact on the forests. In India, working plans were abandoned at this time, and the Forest Department cut trees freely to meet British war needs. In Java, just before the Japanese occupied the region, the Dutch followed a scorched earth policy, destroying sawmills and burning huge piles of giant teak logs so that they would not fall into Japanese hands. The Japanese then exploited the forests recklessly for their own war industries, forcing forest villagers to cut down forests. After the war, it was difficult for the Indonesian Forest Service to get this land back. As in India, people's need for agricultural land had brought them into conflict with the Forest Department's desire to control the land and exclude people from it. Hope today's session was fruitful for you. Let's try to analyze what we have actually extracted out of this session.